Well, hello and welcome to ZBrush Live. Today is going to be an interesting one. I am a little bit behind on doing a few things, but before we get going, I just want to make sure you hear the clicks. Okay, good. Do you hear me talking and do you see my screen, more importantly? Because that's what matters. And then once we get that going, the next thing we will do is go ahead and get started. So if you can hear me and you can see my screen, let me know. And okay, so somebody is saying yes. Yes, as in you can hear me and you can see my screen. All right, so while this is happening, right, somebody was born ready. Awesome. Let's see if this can do a little bit more. Sorry. All right, that's perfect. Okay. Nope. Sorry, it's kind of getting a few things going here. It's going to take a few minutes. Bind with me. Okay, so it looks like you guys can hear me okay, and you can see my screen. So that's always a good sign. And I just need to do one other thing here, and we can get started. That's good. That's good. Okay. So, hey, how's it going? All right, so I'm just going to go ahead and assume that you guys can hear me, because if you couldn't hear me, then somebody would have said something. All right, so we are kind of towards the end of this, and I was hoping to do a lot more rendering today with my new machine, but unfortunately don't have everything I don't think everything is set up completely yet, so I'm just going to stream with my old machine one more time, and you guys will probably see me do some renders today, but we will see how long it takes, and then next week when I do it, when I have my new machine on, we can do some kind of comparisons as to what that is. I'm assuming it's going to be a hell of a lot faster, but for now we just have to do with what we've got. All right, so did a little bit more work on this, on a few things. I'm not happy with some things, I'm happy with others. So here I've got all the poly paint off, and here I'll turn all the poly paint on. I'm experimenting with a visor. It's not necessarily going to be included, so I'm just gonna hide it for now. And I did do a little bit of work here on the jacket and got like this little kind of necklace clasp thing going. And did a little bit of poly painting, not too much. We'll do some more today. All right, so the first thing I want to do here, let's see, is just say I do have a mechanical keyboard, yes, definitely. I have a blue clicky keyboard. Hopefully it's not too distracting. If it is, I'll have to figure out a way to not use this one and maybe use another keyboard for the streams. But I really like clicky keyboards because this one lights up, and also it has it has a nice tactile feel. Reminds me of my old IBM keyboard that I used to have way back when. All right, so here first thing I want to do is maybe make these little things that we have over here a little bit bigger. I think I've got one of them masked. Let's zoom in on them. Are they selected? They are. So I just want to make these bigger. So I'm just going to put the gizmo in the center of one of them. So I'm going to turn symmetry on, put the gizmo at the center of one of them. And you can see here that the gizmo is not really oriented towards where I want it to be. So what I'm going to do here is change the orientation first. So I'm just going to click and drag. And this is giving me the orientation I want, but it's not in the center. One more click, and now this is kind of centered exactly where I want it to be. And I'm going to do the resize, and I'm going to do local symmetry for that. And resize it this way. Hopefully the other one is being resized correctly. Now, something changed a little bit, and let me bring everything else back so you can see what I'm talking about. Something changed a little bit with ZBrush 2023, where they gave you the kind of the symmetry around the gizmo. But you have this problem, which they fixed, and I'll show you what the fix is in a minute. But here, as I'm making this thing bigger, notice that instead of this one becoming bigger, even though we have a local symmetry on, it's kind of moving off into its own area, and that's not what I want. So in order to make that not happen, you have to click on this little dynamic on top of local symmetry, and then you'll get what you want, which is exactly this. So everybody just remember that if things are not working correctly for you with symmetry, make sure that you're using this local thing on or off depending on what exactly it is you're trying to do. So here we go. There's that. Move this over a little bit more and this way. And I don't know if you guys have noticed, but I'm getting some really good cloth patterns as well as textures going on. We'll talk a little bit about that today too. But yeah, I think this is working for this one. And now I just want to go over, turn symmetry off, because this one's correct. This one's a little bit off. So I'm just going to mask this one. And now I want the gizmo to be on the other one. So I'm going to click center. And it should have worked, but it didn't, which is fine. So I'll just do it over again. So I'm just going to move this off, click and drag to get my orientation, and then just center it on that object. And now I've got the exact orientation that I want. And I mean, this doesn't really matter for this specific thing as much, but it's better to get it. I like manipulating things from the center on out. Okay, so there's that, and I think that's kind of doing exactly what I want to do. The only thing is I need to move this piece more. Oops, do I have the right one? I do. I just need to move this a little bit more over this way. Like so, and then maybe adjust the color a little bit as well. Okay. All right, so ZBrush Mania, okay, to make some skins for weapons in games. All right, so I mean, you just want to make skins, like you don't want to modify the weapon. You just want to put some kind of decals and stuff on it. Yeah, thank you, Faramir the Great. So you're asking how to, well, I mean, ZBrush could do it, and ZBrush could do it really well. Here's an example. Let's say you've got here, I'll just do a quick example, kind of a little bit of a tangent here. Let's say you've got this, and just for argument's sake, I'm just going to make a quick gun with this. I'm just going to initialize it as, I don't know, I think they have a gun in here, don't they? I think they do. Let me see. Maybe I'll just pull that up. It might be easier. Hopefully it's not a project and it is a tool. Now that I'm thinking about it, I don't think it is a tool. I think it is a project. So, and I think it's under demo projects here. And it's this thing. Oh, yeah, here we go. Here's this one. But what I want to do, I don't want to load over what I have. So I'm just going to import the objects from it. So load tools from project. And I think I know the path of where that gun is. So, well, actually, I'm just going to use a cube. I'm sorry. I don't want to deal with finding it and loading it. But it's exactly the same process. So here's a kind of a very simplistic cube. And I'm going to go ahead and turn on polyframe. I'm going to insert an edge loop over here, and I'm going to insert an edge loop over here, and let's see, I'm going to turn on symmetry, and turn this thing 90 degrees this way, and put a couple of edge loops this way, and then let's say you've got this part and then this part. I mean, very simplistic looking gun here. Here, let's kind of make this a little bit cooler. All right, so let's say this is our gun, and I just want to make it thinner. And let's add a barrel to it. Going this way. All right, let's do that. Okay, let's say this is our gun. And what I want to do is I want to add some decals to it. So the first thing I want to do here is make sure that I've got enough subdivision levels. So I'm just going to go here and divide it. Now that's going to make it a little bit more kind of funky like this, but that's fine. Maybe it is going to be a kind of a funkier gun. And I am going to turn on dynamic here, and I'm not going to actually, before I divide it, I'm going to do something else. So here I'm just going to go ahead and turn dynamic on and do a little bit of Q grid on this. And let's go for maybe 3 flat, and that's looking okay. And right now this is really very low res, and I'm just going to do a little bit of kind of touching up. This is kind of not looking as good as I'd like it to, but it'll be fine. Okay, and then let's do this. Like so. Maybe add an edge loop over here. It's still one level, so it's easy to add another edge loop, and I'm going to add one more. Like so. And then I'm just going to drop a line this way, and then I'm going to add another edge loop this way, and then just Q mesh these guys in like so. And I got these thin ones, but that's there right there. And let's do, yeah, I think this is good enough. Okay, so let's say this is our gun right here. I'm just going to apply all this stuff to it, and then I'm just going to zero mesh this thing at maybe double of what it is, just so I can get some even topology. And of course, I mean, you know, your gun would probably have UVs, would probably, you know, it would be a completely different story, but here we're just going to do this simple zero mesh of this thing, which, oh, 1.8 million quads. That's a lot. All right, it will zero mesh it. We'll have it in a minute. I wonder if I can even escape out of here. Probably not. Oh, here we go. Yep, here it is. Okay, so I've got this. And so this is the gun, and I want to paint on here. So, I mean, of course, you can always go in here and, oh, I need to make this smaller while I'm thinking about it. Yeah, today was kind of a, you know, I had to jump on pretty quick after work, so didn't have time to do this. Let me do it real quick. Sorry for the distraction. Okay, that's good. That's good as well. So now basically I can just go ahead and choose paint and just, you know, fill this object, let's say with this color, and then go in and just choose any other color, like let's say, I don't know, let's say this color right here, and you can paint this way, but also you can use stencil. So let's say I want to put this guy's face on the gun, right? So I can just use this, just resize it and position it where I want it to go. Like, let's say like that, right? And let's say I just want his face to be on here. And just position this way. Now, one thing you want to do, and I have it on my UI here, is you want to go to Brush, Samples, and Spotlight Projection. So you want to go into Brush, and samples, and make sure you have spotlight projection on, so you're projecting the paint, and then just go ahead and paint, you know, whatever on the gun, and then there it is, right? So now I've just basically added a kind of a decal or a painting onto a gun. And so if you've seen like Call of Duty games or whatever, this is how they do it, right? So there's the actual gun itself with all the details, and then they basically paint on it. And of course you can always physically go in and paint on it as well and just do whatever, right? So that's how you would do that. And hopefully that'll answer that question for you. And it's really easy. I mean, you can do some very detailed painting. And we are going to be doing a lot of painting in today's, I'm just going to leave this for now. I don't think I'm ever going to use it, but I'll just leave it there just in case another question comes up where I need to use it. Okay, so we're going to be doing some poly painting today, so you'll get an idea of how that works. We're going to be doing a lot of poly painting actually, so yeah. All right, so I pretty much have everything working, and by the way, I should say that I have a version of this that I really like that I'll show you, and it's this one right here. I'm going to choose aluminum 1 as my material. Okay, it's telling me to turn redshift on, which I will. There it is. Redshift is on now. So this version of it right here, I'm pretty happy with as a kind of an alternative. And I don't really have to do much work on this one. I mean, I do on the shirt, but not really on the mask or anything like that. And I'll show you what that BPR looks like. Let me go in and load in an HDR real quick. And there it is, Prime K and HDR, and let's just choose this one right here. All right, and so this is just this environment, which is an office with a hole cut on top of it, which I like a lot. There's a couple of things in here which I wish weren't there, and I wish I had something that I can go in and paint them out, but it's fine. I mean, for the most part, it works well. So I'm just going to go ahead and do a BPR and see what I get. So here, this is the first render after I restarted ZBrush. So this is going to take a little bit longer than subsequent renders. Yeah, it is Fairmare. It is pretty simple. You're welcome. It is a pretty simple process, and ZBrush is really good for creating skins. It's, you know, if you're just gonna do paint jobs, then yeah, you can do it in here. But if you're going to do modeling and change the object a bit, then it is a little bit more work. Obviously, you have to sculpt it or model it. Okay, so this is coming along, and we can see here it's preparing to render. Like I said, the first render takes a little bit longer, but every subsequent render from this point forward will not. And just to note that this is a pretty heavy model. I mean, we're looking at 120 million points on it so far, on the entire model, and so right now ZBrush is processing this and is going to be sending it to Redshift in a minute. So the first thing we're going to see, of course, is the global illumination, and then after the global illumination, we'll start to see the object come through. Now, one thing I'm worried about, which I can't really do anything about yet, is that I wonder if I turned my light off, since I'm using an HDR, but we'll know soon enough. But even so, I mean, the next render won't take that long if I turn that light off. So let's let it do its thing. And these are the kinds of things you'll see the difference in when I use my new machine. All right, so here we go. There's the global illumination, and so you can kind of see how it really kind of takes into account all the material stuff over here, the cloth characteristics. And then here's the render. I guess the light was off, so that's a good thing. So this kind of looks a little bit like a Terminator kind of, you know, a metal look, and it's kind of cool. And so this is definitely one look that I will be using. And let me make sure here. I don't know what render settings I have. I don't know if I'm using any BPR filters. I think I'm using at least one. Yeah, I'm just using the contrast auto gray, which I usually do anyway, and that kind of makes it pop out a bit more. Here I'm just kind of tweaking the thing for it. And yeah, I really like what it does to a render, so I tend to use that. And then also I can use outline edge to bring out some of these details here. And that's just kind of a very subtle thing here. And I can also do an outline cavity if I even want to get a little bit more of that. So like I said, the first render takes a long time, but if I want to do another render, let's say I want to do one from this angle, and also let's turn perspective on. Let's say I want to do another render, let's say from this angle right here. Let me kind of make it bigger. The next render is not going to take as much time as the first one did. And I didn't really make any modifications to this. I just moved it a little bit and press render. So we'll see here the next render taking a little bit less time. And while that's happening, and notice here that I need to bring the color out just a little bit more on this side. So for the clothing, I'm pretty much happy with the cloak or jacket or whatever this thing is. I need to do a little bit of work on the shirt since I modified things a little bit. And then just paint everything today, do some minor detail work, and then just do some renders to get an idea of like positioning and whatnot. And we'll do the final render next week. Here we go. There's the global illumination. That took a little bit less time, I think. It tells you at the end how long it took, so like we can check. So that takes a little bit of time, and then it's doing the bucket render, just going around. And yeah, so there it is. I'm amazed at how much is showing up here, even though I haven't really done some of the paint job that I wanted to do. And there it is, right? So here it is with the filters, and here it is without the filters. So this is without filters, and this is with the edge filters, both the cavity and the outline edge, with a few different levels, and you get something like this. All right, so so now that I've kind of gone through and we've worked on that, I'm just going to go back to a simple plastic. Let's say, or I can choose any one of these. And by the way, one thing to note here with the new version of ZBrush is there's, there used to be 3 sets of materials. So there used to be the quick picks, of course, which are the last materials you chose. And then there's the matte cap materials, which are considerably less now in this pop-up, because they you can always get more if you go to your Lightbox and materials. You can get those there, but that number has kind of gone down. The second thing is standard materials, which are the ones over here. So this one does not react to light. It's got light baked in. These ones you can move the light around, but they are not optimized really. I mean, they will work with Redshift, but they're not really Redshift materials. And then there are the Redshift polypaint materials, and so any one of these materials over here, the polypaint materials, you can polypaint. And then there are the ones that are over here, which you cannot polypaint. So this basically is whatever. So the color of these ones is determined if you go to the material and material properties and the modifiers, it's determined by this base color, right? So for all these materials down here, the base color is what drives what the object is. So we're going to choose one of these materials that we can polypaint, because we are going to polypaint, and we are working with a plastic. We could either do a plastic, or how about this one, simple plastic, glossy white. Let's see, how come I got 2 of these? Doesn't matter, I'll choose this one. Okay, so this one has a little bit of gloss on it, and I'm going to hide the background. This one has a little bit of a specular on it, has a little bit of a gloss, and I don't know if my material has that, so I'm going to modify that a bit. I've created my own menu for materials. I kind of wanted to organize things a little bit differently. So here, usually if you want to manipulate a material, you'll choose it over here or over here. and then you would go into modifiers and tweak these sliders. But I like the sliders organized a little bit differently for me, and I've organized them this way, where I actually, like if I don't want to have a coat, I can just hide that so it's not really taking up space. If I'm not going to use subsurface, I can hide that. So the two things I'm going to be using, I'm not even going to use transparency on this. So I'm just hiding those. All I'm using is the diffuse color weight, which is the entire weight. And here, this needs to be, the base needs to be white. So I'm going to change that to white. And that's kind of giving me this, right? So I don't really have a color affecting it at all. It's just basically this is the color that it is. But if I want to actually change the color of the base, I can make it darker. Let's say I want a darker gray. And so you can see that my poly paint is still there, but it's on a grayer, darker material. I'm just going to go and choose kind of more of a cream color, maybe orange. Something like this, and that kind of adds a little bit more. It's always good to have your reference up. So I'm just going to bring that up and put it over here to the left so I can kind of see if this is matching it. This seems a little bit less warm, so I'm going to go ahead and make it cooler. Let's see, maybe something like that's too dark. Maybe something like this. Okay, so this is kind of what I'm liking for like this front piece to make that up. Also, this is not very it's not very shiny in the reference that I have. I kind of the shine is nice, but I don't know if I want it to be that shiny. So I'm going to increase the roughness of the reflection. Okay, notice that diffuse has a roughness as well, but I don't want to mess with that. I'm just going to mess with the roughness for the reflection, which is the specular. So you can see now it's kind of a little bit, I mean, there still is a bit of a specular, but it's a little bit rougher. And that's looking good. Now, the other thing I want to see here, if I can get, is I wonder if I add a noise to this, if I'm going to get a better texture. So right now I'm not going I'm going off track. I'm just going to try this to see what happens. So here I'm just going to go to surface, noise, and let's frame this. There it is. So you can see the noise right now is a little bit too big, so I'm going to make it smaller. And let's increase the strength of it a little bit so we can see it better. Make that noise scale a little bit less. Something like that. And then I'm actually not going to use the colors of the mask. I'm just going to use whatever colors are there. And I want to zoom in a little bit more. Let's frame it again, and I'll zoom in so see what we are working with. So you can see this kind of adds a little bit of that kind of little bit of that noise, but I think it's still too much. I'm going to go for 0.025. Let's see what that gives us. So it's still there, and then let's make the strength a little bit more. Okay, so we're seeing that. I think I need to go to 0.01, really small. Points, and then let's increase the strength again, see what we're getting. That's okay, and I think I like that. It actually definitely adds a little bit more kind of real looking objects to me, but I don't know if I want to apply this to everything, so I'm going to click OK for now. And what I'm going to do, I haven't applied the mask, it's just there. I can turn it off at any minute. But what I want to do here is I want to mask some of this model. So I'm going to go to mask here, and let's do a mask by smoothness. Let's try that. Okay. So this is actually, I don't know if I have dynamic subdiv on. This might take a while because this part here is 29 million polys, so it's pretty thick. I could get rid of the back of it just to make it a little bit lighter, but let's see how long this takes. Hey, Curious, how's it going? Okay, Lord Luigi Riggs is putting these words in column. I don't know what that is. Okay, so now you can see it masked all these inside parts for me. That actually wasn't too bad. I probably could have done that at lower subdivision levels too. This is at level 7. And so now that I've got this mask, let's bring that noise back. So now just the parts that are kind of not in these grooves are going to be get that mask. So here we go, masking, or not the mask, I'm sorry, the surface noise. Right, so I can bring the noise back up, and you can see here that if I turn the mask off, the viewing of it off, you can see now that I've got this noise happening, but it's not happening at the borders. And I can blur that mask, and I can see this real time as it's happening. So there's the mask blurred, and so now the transition isn't as harsh between where it is kind of bumpy and where it's not. So I think that's working okay. And now that I like this, what I can do is store a morph target. I guess I already have a morph target. I'm going to delete it and store a new one. So I've got a morph target stored. And then, let me see here. With the surface off, let's delete the morph target and store it. So there's my morph target. That's like this. And then I'm going to add the noise like that. And is the masking still there? It is. And what I'm going to do is I'm just going to apply that noise to the geometry. So I'm going to apply it to the mesh. And this will take a few minutes. And now you can see that the geometry itself is there. I'm not using the noise plugin anymore. And I can see I have that surface, but I also have it as a morph target. So I can choose to go less, or I can go more just to get a little bit more of that surface noise showing. So it depends. Sometimes when you render it doesn't show. So it's nice to have this ability to pump it up if I need to. Right now I'm just going to leave it at 0, and I'm going to clear that mask, and I'm going to do a quick render just to see what that looks like. I could always do a render a specific spot, but I'm just going to do a render on the whole thing. Now, another thing I'm going to do in a minute is do that cavity mask again, and maybe paint some of these grooves with some a darker color, just to get a little bit more weathering on it. Okay, so again, the render isn't going to take as long since we've already done the render before. Maybe it'll take a little bit more time because we just modified some of the surface on here. And by the way, this mask, this front part, I actually allotted a lot of geometry to. This thing has a back which I can get rid of, and that will reduce a lot of time. But I just want to see what this kind of surface quality is once this render is done. And again, it depends on how close I'm going to look at this, but right now it's zoomed in a lot more than I would need to zoom in on it. For what I have as my project. But if this was for a movie where there was going to be close-up, then I would have to do more work. Okay. So I think it'll throw the global illumination first, and then do the render. And notice that this is the kind of thing where my new machine will be hopefully a lot faster. Here we go, global illumination, and the global illumination itself kind of has a cool look to it. I wonder if it'd be cool if this was kind of a layer, a paint layer you could use. Okay, so here I'm kind of seeing what that surface is looking like, and it's a little bit too much. And that's exactly why I did this. I can stop the render. I don't really need to continue it. But what I can need to do is make that detail a little bit less. And since I have that morph target, it's pretty easy to do. I just click on here and let's go to, is it all the way to 1? Or is it 100? It is 100. Okay, so let's just go to 25. And again, this is where I'm looking. Yeah, 25 is good. Let's do another 25. Because I do want a little bit of texture. I just don't want it to be like too much. All right, so there it is. All right, so we have that. Now these pieces here are separate, but let's do the other thing, what I was doing with masking. So I'm just going to go back to masking and let's do mask by smoothness. This time I'm going to drop it 1 subdivision level. Let's go even to 5, and then just let's do mask by smoothness, which would, here we go, take a lot less time. And then I'm just going to bump back my subdivision levels to back to 7. And then the borders of the masks are pretty harsh here, so what I want to do is reduce that. And first crash of the evening. Wow, that was like total bam, gone. Which sucks, which means we're going to lose some of the work that we did, but that's fine. All right, restarting ZBrush. Yeah, that was strange. I wasn't really doing anything out of the ordinary, but that's fine. All right, let's just go ahead and load our file back in. Actually, since we have this, I'm going to go ahead and load that gun in. And show you the skin like on it, what it would look like. So yeah, I've got this gun over here, and I've got, let's say, you know, I've got the pattern over here. If I turn dynamic off, you can see that, and is this all a bunch of subtools? It is. What I'm going to do here is say merge all, merge visible, bam, right, and then it should just give me one object, which is there. I'm going to copy that. And I am going to paste it back in where I had these images. And I'm wondering if these images will work for projection painting. I don't know. I'm going to try it. All right, so I'm just going to paste the gun here, and I'm going to hide everything except it. All right, and there it is. It's all one piece. And let's say I want to paint it now. I'm just going to go ahead and go to... And again, I don't know if this is going to work, but I was wondering if I'm going to be able to paint the pattern of this thing on here. So that's on, and I'm going to turn on spotlight projection, which I don't know if it is going to work. I don't know if these images, let me see, are they in the texture? They're not. Let's see. I'm just going to try this trial and error just to see if it does work or not. And no. But that's fine. I don't really need to have that background, I guess. And I'm just going to go ahead and go to floor and turn the Y and Z and X off. So I just have the object, and this is what it looks like, right? And I'm just going to go ahead and subdivide this a few times. All right. So right now it's at about 4 million polygons. And now if I want to paint on here, I could just go to paint. Let's go ahead and pick basic material here, and or let's just pick a metal. Why not? Let's pick, I don't know, metal. How about that? And okay, there it is. And now if I want to paint it, I can just go ahead and pick the paintbrush. I'm going to fill the object with whatever color is there, and then maybe choose, I don't know, yellow. And now, you know, you can kind of paint it this way. And if you want to have symmetry on, you can turn symmetry on, and then whatever you paint on one side will be on the other side. And then if you want to add a stencil to it, I'll just go ahead and choose any one of these textures. Let's say we want to use, I don't know, say the ZBrush logo or something like that, right? And then I'm going to load that in to Spotlight. And let's say I want to put the ZBrush logo over here like that. And I think there's something you can do here to, you know, hide the white, but that's fine. So here I'm just painting, and then if I hide this, now that is basically painted onto the gun itself. Now I don't really have enough resolution for it to show up well, but this is basically how I would do it. So that's that. Now that I've got that going, let me open up what we lost. And hopefully it wasn't that big of a deal. Yeah, we didn't really do that much, so it was okay. And usually this is the time where when your project gets really big, a lot of different parts, it's a good time to save early and save often. So I definitely highly recommend you save your project when you get to a stage where you have a lot of objects. So once you're happy with something, just drop a quick save on it. I also have a lot of junk in the builders and parts and whatnot I could get rid of, which will make my loading and saving a lot faster. But again, I really haven't had time to spend on this over the last couple of weeks, because I've been busy with a project and also getting my new machine set up. All right, so this will be here. Okay, here we go. And I don't really care about the visor. Oh man, I lost the little changes I made to this, but I can do them later. All right, so let's go back to the material here. We just picked this simple plastic one. Okay, let's turn Redshift back on. Now, one other thing I want to do here, just to get better resolution for you guys, is just double my document size. So new document, no. Document double. There it is. And let's do an 8.5, and that just will give me a better quality image. Okay, and also, let's pick a lighter color. Okay, and so now we want to go to this part right here. It's the one we were working on. And my cat all of a sudden decided that I needed to listen to her. She's saying stuff. She's sitting over there looking at me. All right, let me solo the part out. Okay, there's that. I'm going to see if I really need this level of detail on this thing. Like right now I've got 7 subdivision levels and it's 29 million. I wonder if I go down to 6 if it's going to look any worse. Actually, not a difference at all. So I'm going to get rid of that higher subdivision level. I'm just going to stay with 6. That will be a lot faster. Okay, and then now let's get these crevices again. I'm going to do the painting of them earlier. So here I'm just going to go down to masking. And mask by smoothness. Mask it. And you'll see this will take a lot less time than the 7 levels of subdivision. So 7 million takes a lot less time than 4 times 7 million. Okay, so there's the mask. And I don't know if I need that much of it, so I'm going to shrink the mask a little bit. So you can kind of see it shrinking. And I'm going to try and shrink it as much so I barely see the mask on this kind of top part. And all right, so that's kind of more or less what I want. And I'm going to blur it a little bit and sharpen it just to see where the borders are. Okay, that's good. Okay, so this is kind of going to be the part I'm going to paint, what's masked. So I'm just going to invert that mask. Okay, so whatever is not dark is going to get color now. And so now I just want to pick whatever color this is, which is this beige color, and just make it a little bit darker. Start hitting it with that. And I'm just physically painting it. Of course, I can always do kind of a fill. But I'm just going to physically paint it so it just looks a bit longer. And I'll choose an alpha too, just for kicks. How about, let's choose this one. So now I'm painting with that alpha, and it's not going to be very uniform. And I'm going to turn symmetry off too, just because I want it to be a little bit asymmetrical in the way it's weathered. And I'm going to go a little bit darker. And drop some of that. And one thing to do here, if you want, is you can always hide the mask. So the mask is still on, but you can't see it. So you actually can see what you're doing. So you can kind of see that noise that's being added, the painterly noise that's being added to these areas. Right, so you can kind of see how things are looking a lot more realistic, a lot more weathered. And you know, it's funny, people don't do, you know, usually when you see a ZBrush demo, it's usually more of the sculpting, but you know, it's a pretty powerful painting tool as well, a 3D painting tool. Right, so this is kind of, I'm gonna go with more lines. Let's see, yeah, this is a bit better, although I can't go wild with it. Just need to choose an angle and stick to that. Right, so hopefully this is coming through and you can see, you know, I'm just hitting this with, and this actually works out really well. This alpha works out really, really well. And of course, not having symmetry on, you have to duplicate your work, but that's fine. And what this is doing is just from this distance, it's adding a little bit more character to the piece. Another thing you can also do is you can do a spray. So you can just kind of do this with varying sizes, and then you basically will get a little bit more character and different sizes of these dashes that I'm adding here. All right, and then let's kind of do a little bit more work. You can see a little bit more of it as I zoom in. So I'm just going to do a little bit more of it over here. And my reference, I'll have to import it one more time. And let's put it up here. And turn spotlight projection off. Oh, I don't need this one anymore, so let's get rid of it. And that's good. Yeah, I'm not projecting anymore. And the only other thing also is the material. I made the tweaks to it, so now I need to make those tweaks again. So I'm just going to up the roughness of the reflection here, just so I don't have as much of a specular on it. Because this looks pretty matte to me. It doesn't look very shiny. But I don't want it to be too matte, because then it kind of looks very painted. Let's see, let's go to 60 for roughness. Yep, that's kind of looking better. All right, let's bring everything back, and yeah. So now I'm just going to go around some of these areas that there are additional parts and just paint those. So they stand out more. Okay, so now I've got a very good delineation between them. So that's kind of good. And again, always if I want to add more of whatever is going on over here, I can always use this and paint it on there as well. But I think I'm liking what's happening so far. So now let's just work on this piece right here, which is this one, which is a separate piece. And I'm not even masking this one. I'm just gonna paint it so it looks like it's part of it and not just a separate piece. So I'm just adding some borders to it. I wonder what will happen if I mask this thing. So let's just try that. Mask by smoothness. That's exactly what I want. Do that. Hide the mask, and then just do the exact same thing we did before. So I'm not really hitting the center of it, I'm just hitting the edges. And that looks like it fits in more. Clear the mask, and just maybe turn symmetry off on this, and just maybe make one kind of thing to make one side stand out. Okay, so now that feels like it's more integrated into there. And I'm going to just choose a lighter color from here and just beat some of those back. All right, that's good. I don't want it to be too dark. Let me do the same thing here too. So I flipped back to this piece. Which is probably still masked. Another thing also that you might want to do is, you know, your RGB intensity is at 100. You can reduce that if you want stuff from the background to show up. All right, so this piece is fitting in nicely. Now let's work with this one, which is the nose piece. This piece right here. Okay, I'm going to do the same thing, mask by smoothness, and invert that mask. And this one doesn't really have a pattern on it, so right, and then let's pick a darker color. Actually, for this one, I'm going to shrink that mask a bit. There we go. Oh, too much. All right. So now I'm going to hit these corners, but I want a darker color. So I'm going to pick the darker color that's over here. There it is, and I'm going to turn off symmetry just so I don't get the same thing on both sides, and I'm just basically hitting this thing a little bit of color and then undo the mask. So now you can see that it's standing out a little bit more. And then I'm just going to go back to the mask that's behind it. Or the piece that's behind it, this one, and I'm going to weather these corners just a little bit. All right, let's pick a lighter color, hit that back. Right, so I'm getting a little bit more of a, organic, real looking, and I don't really know what this material is. It looks like it's some sort of a bone. So I don't know if this thing's wearing a bone of something on its face or what it is. So here I'm just going to go back to this alpha and where the lines are a little bit too much, just beat them back with some color. All right, that's good. Now let's move on to these teeth over here. So I've made a little bit of a kind of a creative leap here. I've created a different look for the teeth than what is over here, just because I think this looks a little bit better. I don't know. All right, and I'm just going to use maybe this color right here, and maybe turn the spray off and just go back to dots. And what I'm going to do here is I'm just going to start from scratch with this. It's got some paint on it, but I don't like it, so I'm just going to pick a color, fill object. So now this is kind of filled with this color, and let's do mask by smoothness. Oh, that is really nice. It gives me these facets, and then I'm just going to invert that mask and then hit it with the darker color. So let me pick the darker color over here. And I don't know what I'm doing here. Let's just go ahead and turn alpha off. Actually, I'm going to turn back one of these linear alphas. Let's save that one again. And I'm just painting the areas that are lighter color. And I don't know if I do have symmetry on. I do. It doesn't matter at this point. Right, I'm going to shrink that mask and then sharpen it. Okay, so now I've got kind of this little cool thing happening. Paint that and then clear the mask to see what we've got. Okay, so this is what we've got so far. It's kind of cool. And then I can just do some freehand painting. I'm going to pick a darker color, like much darker. I don't think this thing has a mask anymore, but I don't know why. It's kind of hard to get paint on it just because it's small. Also, this thing doesn't have too many polygons. I don't wonder if dynamic is on for it. It is. If I turn dynamic off and divide it, so let's divide it once, twice. Yeah, here we go. This is much better. Right, so here. All right, and let's fight this back. Something like that. All right, another thing I also want to do here is make these a little bit thicker. And I think I've got that issue where I've got local symmetry and dynamic on. Local sim, dynamic off, and just make these bigger. Pull them out. Make them nice and bold, maybe not that much. All right, I think we moved them kind of to an undesirable location. Let's get them back to where they were. I think that's good. Nope, too big still. It's a little bit too late to be making minor changes, but this is what I like about designing in ZBrush is I don't really have to be married to an exact look. I can keep working on it as I go along. So let's pick the darker color. And let's go to this piece right here and match it along the edge. Again, this is symmetrical, but it doesn't really matter. I can always break symmetry and then add some strokes, and it'll make it look less less symmetric. All right. Okay, so let's do this middle tooth. And again, I think this has dynamic on. Nope, does not. Is 17,000 points. We can divide it one more time just to get more polypaint room. And I'm going to turn symmetry off on this. Since it's in the middle, it will show off symmetry more. Right, so here I'm just beating it back, adding the streaks, and then we'll go back with the original color. And then the darker color. I can use the C key to get the color underneath the brush as well if I want to make this faster. All right, there is the middle tooth. It's kind of looking outwards, but not. So I'm going to go back to no alpha and maybe do a little bit of ambient occlusion painting myself. So I'm going to pick a darker color here. Let's pick something. There we go. I can pick from my painting too, or from this image. Here we go. I'm going to solo this out and just paint the back. And the sides a darker color. It's kind of interesting. Did that show up? It did. So I don't have backface mask on. That's why this is happening. But it's fine. You can always. The more, you know, if you're not really happy with the result of what you're getting, if you hit it again and again, you just add layers and layers of detail. And again, this is going to be viewed from this angle, so that's good enough. Now I want to match some of that ambient occlusion on the mask itself, so I'm going back to it. And let's pick it the darker color here. So I guess it's a good thing my new machine isn't really fully configured yet. That way I get to spend a little bit of time on this polypaint work. Okay, so that's bringing it out a little bit more. And I feel like there need to be some details on these teeth. So let's see if I can, if I've got enough resolution to add. Yeah, it's not bad. And let's activate symmetry here. Now I'm just basically adding geometry. Maybe something like this. Just little details that'll catch the light in an interesting way. I should have done a morph target on this, but I didn't. That's fine. I think that's good right there. I kind of like the, you know, middle tooth kind of being, not having the split in the middle. Maybe coming in this way. And then maybe having some serrations over here. So I'm going to use, let's see if this works. So I'm going to put one here, and then one here, and then let's just do an interpolate. Nope, too many. Let's go to maybe 2 strokes. Put one here, and interpolate. There we go. That worked. So that created this kind of little edging over here, and I'm trying to match kind of a little bit of the funk that's going on over there. All right, that's good. Right, that detail's showing up a little bit and makes it a little bit more interesting. Let's move on to this, see if we can add a few details on it. And again, these are just very minor things that overall it doesn't make that big of a difference, but it does add a little bit of realism to the object. It's a bit too much. Again, I should be storing morph targets for these, but I'm forgetting. It's fine. All right, so some of this detail is sculpted again, some of it is painted, and at the end it's going to just show up in the render. I don't know if I like that last line I added, so it's going away. Let's see if that helps. Nope, I don't like that either. I think maybe continuing this over, here we go, that'll make it better. And do a little bit of a extrusion over here, like that. Okay, so I'm reducing the detail on this top one a little bit. It's a bit too much, and then let's do these bottom ones. I think these bottom ones need a division level or 2. Dynamics on, no. Okay. All right, so I'm going to be smart about this one and store a morph target. And then work on it. right, that looks good. Let's do some paint on these. I didn't do any painting on these guys, so here, let's choose this darker color and hit the borders. Go back to this back piece, match them. And a lot of this kind of stuff happens nicely in Substance Painter. But I feel like even though Substance Painter does a lot of this stuff automatically, I still, end up going in after the fact and doing a little bit of touch-up painting and making sure it's not so, I don't know what the exact word is, but you can definitely, when you look at some of the assets in games or whatever, you can tell that they're over-weathered. And you want things to be weathered, but weathered realistically. All right, so now this is, again, I keep zooming in and out. This is kind of the place we're going to look at it at, so it's looking good there. This piece we need to kind of do some of that edge darkening on it. I'm going to do the mask by smoothness for it. Solo it out. Okay, 118. That's good enough. Let's go ahead and mask by smoothness. That gives me the edges. And then let's grow that mask. And blur it. And invert it. So now we can add some dark edges to this too. Wow, that's way too much. Way too much. This is one of those times where it might be a good idea to reduce the RGB intensity to 28. That way it's not really obliterating it with darkness. Right. Yeah, that's looking a lot more natural. And again, match it on the other side. Well, so I'm adding a lot more detail than what's in the image. Here I'm going to actually take a bold move and pick a really dark color. Turn symmetry on for this, and let me make sure I'm the right subtool. I am. I want to paint these in a bit more. Notice here that I'm hitting a limit to my draw size, so I need to turn dynamic off, and I can go even smaller. Like so. All right. So what I'm not liking is the edge here is not looking very sharp. So I'm going to choose a different brush here that I have, and it's down here. I need to kind of get to it, which is going to be a little bit hard because I need my mouse cursor to just be on this edge. Here we go. This is a paintbrush that I've made that is a paintbrush that is a modification of some other paintbrush that I have. Turn this off. What the heck is going on? Okay, here we go. I just want to get this. I can just do this. Preferences, config, restore custom UI, and that'll do that. Okay. So now that I've got that brush, you will see that that brush has harsher edges like that. And that's weird. Geez, where is that thing? If I don't want to, I guess I'll scroll up. It's fine. This thing I want off. Okay, now preferences, config, restore, custom UI. Okay, we're back. So now I just want to make the brush size smaller. And notice here I'm getting a lot sharper edges. And notice here that again my actually it is all the way up. I don't want it to be all the way up. And I can just hit this, create kind of a interesting shape here, and then beat it back with what's over here. Again, I would get into this a little bit more if I was going to zoom in, but I think for what we've got here, it's good enough. Oops. This crap again. All right, where was this? It's probably under, let's see, where would it be? Under document, draw. I'm trying to find that thing so I don't have to scroll down my side. Thing over, but I think it's either document or draw, because usually I have my screen at a 4K resolution, so when I go back to here it's got to be under either draw or document. All right, doesn't matter. I'm just going to scroll up and find out where it is for the last time. Oh no. Not again. No, please don't crash. This kind of creates an interesting look. But let's wait and see. Okay, here we go. Okay. This was when transparent. Transparency back off. I should have saved. Oh well, I'll save after. But I think we're good. Okay. All right, what I want now is this lighter color. And it looks like we inadvertently masked something. Okay, here we go. I don't know why we're reverting back to that. Solo. I'm not hitting polyframe by accident, am I? Is that what's causing this? Maybe that is. All right, here we go. Turn polyframe off. I've done quite a bit of work. I think it's a good time to save, but just before I do that, I just want to make one more change here. Famous last words, right? I just want to, what's going on? There we go. And I'm just going to make sure I don't have mask on here. I don't know why it keeps reverting to this, but here we go. right, something very strange is happening. And I think it's because I'm pressing the wrong button. But it's fine, I got it. All right, there's that. And then this needs to be a little bit darker over here too. I don't even know if we can see that part, but there it is. And then this piece right here. And if I want sharper edges, I can just choose like the square alpha. All right, oops. Okay, I think now's a good time to save. As soon as I get everything back, it's going to be a save. All right, you guys have been really quiet. What's going on? Nobody's chatting. I did some weird thing over here. I guess I'll need to fix it. I must have turned, oh, did I do that? I didn't inadvertently turn on, whatchamacallit, did I? Let me make sure I didn't. HD, okay, good. No, all right. I inadvertently created these weird squares over here. I don't know why. But I'm going to leave them. I'm just going to paint over them. Are they masking? All right, they're not there. That's very strange. I guess they were masks. Okay. Cool, bring this back, save it. All right, people are just watching. Okay, so today's the day of voyeurs and not chatters. All right, I'm just gonna, this is a good time to save it. I should use the save next. I forget to do it. It's a new feature where it saves the next version of something. So automatically bumps up the number. But we'll wait and see. All right. Okay, so now that we have that saved, I feel a little bit more comfortable. But this is a little bit kind of sluggish. I don't know why. I think I'm just going to reload the project. Okay. Yeah, I must have either turned dynamic subdiv on or something because this thing is taking way too long to move around. So I'll just wait until it's kind of back and then is dynamic on? No. Okay, it's figured itself out. All right, so let's do Let's do that thing we did with this before. Making these things bigger. And I'm just going to solo them out just to get the gizmo in the right place. So just put it on the back here, 2 points, center it. And of course it's not going to center on there because I've got symmetry on. So I'm just going to mask one. Wow, this thing is really strange with the... Now I have to figure out why it's happening. All right, so where is that weird? Here it is, this thing, dots display. Where is it at? Transform. So it's here, transform and dots display. This is the thing that's kind of wreaking havoc. All right, so preferences, config, restore, custom UI. Okay, we're back to what we had. Now we'll just put this in the center. This is what I wanted, but I want to grow both of these out. Is there a thing on it? No, there isn't. Okay. Let's make these bigger. Okay, again, that local symmetry with dynamic. On, let's bring everything back. Yeah, I think something is funky in here. I'm just going to, for sanity's sake, I'm just going to reload the project. I think I'm just going to restart ZBrush, actually. Well, yeah, I'm just going to restart ZBrush. Just because I don't know what that thing is. By turning on those dots, I did something that I shouldn't have done, so might as well just redo it. All right, so we've got DRD. I don't know. I can't read your name, but you've got some emojis on there, which I can't tell what they're saying. But I have ZBrush coming up. Based on how everything was going today, I kind of knew this stream was going to be an interesting one. All right, here we go. So basically, you know, we're just going to do a little bit of painting and then do a few renders, see what we get. And then next week we'll do the final renders, and I don't know if I'm going to tweak it in Photoshop or not, but we'll finish this thing off next week. I know I said this week, but the machine wasn't ready, unfortunately. Yeah, streaming is fun. I'm again, eventually one of these days I'm going to do it on my own. Document, W size new document, no, there it is. And then document double. Yes. And where did you go? We don't need the... All right. All right, seems like we're back to the way things were. Now this bottom piece over here, I think needs a little bit more detail. And I'm actually going to use the image to give it its kind of first coat. So bear with me one last time. Hopefully of loading in my reference. There it is. And let's pick it. Spotlight. Right, and so I'm just going to make it about this big. And let's see if we can get some of these exciting things. I'm going to turn Spotlight projection on, turn Paint on, and let's see if we can get some of these interesting kind of details on it. So again, I'm painting this inside part. I don't know if you guys can see it. I'm just going to solo it so it's easier. And let's put that here. Okay, and you can see I got this painted in from what's behind it, and then let's choose to see. I don't have to pick exactly its space. I can just do other places too. So here I'm just going to grab some of this over here, see what we got. Okay, we got that, and then let's get some paint on this area. So here I'm actually going to make this a lot bigger and pick areas like here where I have the color, and then just move the mandible over to it and just paint. All right, so that gave us, that ruined this area though. Maybe make sure I don't get into those areas. So let's just paint this area over here. And I don't know if you guys can see it. I mean, this thing is pretty, looks like I'd make it a little bit less transparent. The paint will be the same. It's just that I will see whatever I'm doing a little bit more. And I kind of like this line over here. It kind of adds some interest, and I also like what's going on here. So this is what I just did, and then let's kind of do a little bit of work over on this area. What looks good? Maybe this kind of dirtier parts. Nope. Brush is way too big. All right, that looks okay. Let's bring this detail back. I guess I'm not even going to see that part in the back. That looks good. Okay, so I've got more of a pattern that I like over here, and then I can just start augmenting it with a little bit more of my own paint. But I think I'm good. And then with these things, I added them this way, but I think I'm going to change them around a bit. So I'm going to go to that subtool. If I can hit it. Come. All right, solo. Here we go. And then I just want to work with the bottom one, so I'm just going to mask. I'm just going to select a little piece of this, Control-Shift-A, symmetry on, do the same thing. All right, so mask the top one because I don't want to touch it. I just want to manipulate the bottom one. And again, the gizmo is way off, so to get the gizmo to where I want it to be, I'm just going to select the plane to here, center it. So now I basically am at the center of that piece. And then I think I want it to be more parallel instead of kind of diagonal like that. And move it over. Maybe further down, maybe like this. I don't even know why I have these pieces. They don't really kind of... Let's see, what would be... What am I trying to do? Yeah, get it to be that way. And be there like that. Okay. And I don't know what the point of these are, but they're kind of cool. Maybe move them in a bit. All right, and now I'm going to actually maybe a little bit more forward. And maybe go to here and create sockets for them. And for that, I'm going to use trim hole. Okay, good. And it's way too much. What I want this to do is just to come out like so, just to meet this. I think that's way too much. Okay, I need to make my drum brush size a lot smaller, so I have to turn dynamic off. My brush size to about maybe 4. Here we go. I don't know how much. Oh, wow. Like, that's way too much. Maybe about there. All right. And that kind of works. All right. So I'll just add a little bit more detail to it. And maybe I'll help it with some paint in a minute, but that definitely looks like it's a conduit, and I'm going to do the same thing here. I'm just going to do it with Damien Standard and H Polish. Again, I don't know if this really is adding much to it. I need these to be further in. Like so. Okay. So right now I'm doing kind of sculpting as well as painting at the same time and detailing. Again, this is something that I really like to do in ZBrush. No other program kind of gives me this flexibility. It's usually, you know, do something in one stage and then move it to the next stage and then move it to the next stage. But with ZBrush, I can continue to design and paint and do all these things at the same time. And I kind of like that flexibility. In a production, this could be frustrating, but also sometimes unavoidable. So it's good to be able to do it. And I'm trying to find a good place for the second one of these. And I think I found it. I think that's good right there. All right, so now for these, I haven't painted them yet. And let's pick a color. One of these darker colors. Oh, I guess I should choose a paintbrush. And fill object. that works. Again, you just have to make it visible from this angle. All right, let's work on this top piece right now. I'm gonna hit this thing with H-polish. I'm gonna do a little bit of a change here to H-polish. I got this hint from Ian the other day, and it's really, really helpful. And I think it's under samples and preserve edge. I'm going to dump that up all the way to 100 with H-polish, and that gives me a little bit of a better result. And then with the move brush, I'm just going to adjust this bit of roundness over here, move it in a bit. Okay, so that's done. Let's go ahead and mask it and paint it. Masking by smoothness, there it is, and invert that mask. And I just want to make these a little bit darker, so let's pick colors that we already are using, like these ones over here. And let's go ahead and go to paintbrush. Maybe a little bit darker as well. Maybe there. Let's see what that does. Okay, so that kind of gives us a little bit of a cool look. And I think we're getting there. All right, let's go back to here. I've got some crevices in here, which I could probably paint with a darker color. And did I have symmetry on? I did. That's good. Let's go a little bit darker. And again, some of this color looks mushy from that close of a distance, but we're gonna render this thing probably from a distance like this, and in that distance it looks fine. There we go. All right, so clean up some of these lines. I mean, some of these lines are adding to it, but some of them, like I don't really want like this little blemish over here, so I'm going to take it out. And then I don't know if I want this. No, it was kind of cool. All right. All right, I got a lot of painting to do on this inside piece here too, so let me just go and do that. It's got a little bit of color on it, but not much. I'm going to choose a square alpha just so I can get some harsher edges. Another way to do that is, of course, also to and I'm going to do that too while I'm at it. I'm going to go in here and under tablet pressure, where are you? I'm going to max that out. Same thing for intensity. And specifically more so for RGB intensity. So that way I'm getting more of these kind of cleaner lines. All right, what is the start for someone new? I got that question asked all the time. I don't know. You know, I mean, I started in 2005 with ZBrush, and it was a whole completely different landscape then than it is now. I would say, you know, if you can take a class, take a class. It really, I think that's the best way to learn it. But if you can't and you're not at a place where you can take a class, then there's a lot of tutorials, but you got to put in the time. There's no other way. I wish there was, but there isn't. So you just have to spend the time and learn and practice, just like everything else. And try not to get discouraged. I know it gets really discouraging when you see people doing amazing stuff. I remember when I first was in college, or not in college, but at Noman learning ZBrush, I was looking at my teachers doing amazing stuff and wanted to do the same thing, but knew that it was going to be a while before I could. All right. And you just have to allow yourself to kind of be in that condition for a while and not take it personally until you get to a point where, you know, and over time it happens. Like, you will know when you're starting to get good. And it's not going to happen immediately, but it will happen one day if you keep at it. And I should say not for everybody though, because I've worked with a lot of students, and I've had some amazing ones, and I've had ones that have just struggled to pick it up. But yeah, I mean, I've had a lot of students that kind of have hated like traditional CG apps, like would come to me and just cry about how much they hate Maya and things like that. And I mean, I'm a Maya user. I know Maya really well, but I totally see how, you know, that's a different mindset than what you're doing here. And some students just take to this organically and love working in ZBrush more so than in Maya. Because if you are somebody who knows Maya or knows Blender or knows one of these traditional software packages, it might be harder for you to learn ZBrush than if you just started with ZBrush. Okay, so that's that. Unsolo this, and then I'm going to pick this darker color. I'm contemplating what to paint this inside part, and I think I just decided I'm going to go with the beige. It's so fun to paint and texture because usually most of the time I'm modeling and building, so to get to texture like this is kind of a thrill. Okay. Back to, actually, I'm going to keep this dark color over here and pick this one over here, so I can just go back and forth. All right, so let's see what that did. That's good. I think I want this part to be... There we go. It's kind of hard to just look at a 2D image and interpolate a whole three-dimensional object from it, but it's also fun. How many subtools? Well, I've got a lot more subtools that I'm not using. So there are all these ones that I see. And then the eyes are also stuff that I see. But there's a body, by the way. I don't know if you watch my previous streams, you know that there's a body, which I'm not really going to do much with. But this guy does have a body. If I need to ever develop him into full character, I can. And if somebody wants to pay me to do it, I'll be more than happy to. But right now we're just working on a bust. So the body is 3 parts, and then there are all these builder parts. And I can totally delete this folder at this point, which I will. Let's do that. So I'm going to choose this folder and just say delete all. Okay. So now I can tell you how many subtools it is. It's 46, which is a lot, but not that much. I can combine some of them, but I like the way it is. All right, so that's that. Let's work on this shirt. How are we doing on time? Oh my gosh, we're at time. Time flew today. But that's fine. I'll continue. I'm going to do some more work on it anyway, so might as well. So this shirt looks really kind of bad. I don't know if I like the color. I'm kind of going off of the color of the reference. So if I look at the reference that I have over here, and let me make that less opaque. I kind of picked the colors from here, but let me see if I can do something better. Okay, there it is, and let's pick maybe this color. This is a bit of a lighter color, and let's fill it. Let's see if that looks any better. No, it totally looks not good. What if I choose the darker color? That looks good, but it's kind of too dark. Maybe there. Yeah, that's okay. All right, but it's also like, you know, since it is kind of this material, it's not really showing up. So I got to do things to kind of make it pop more. Why is it not moving? So this thing, it does have dynamic subdiv on. I'm going to turn that off. And am I on Damien standard? I am, but it's not doing anything. And why is that? Let me reset current brush. Still not doing anything. Not masked. I don't know what is going on. All right, so this is at subdivision level 2. I'm going to go all the way to down to 1. Okay, so this is the geometry I have. I guess what I could do is ZBrush this thing. So I'm going to get rid of all the higher subdivision levels and ZBrush it. Let's make sure symmetry is on. ZBrush it at same, just to get more even topology. And then, okay, there it is. All right, now let's go Daemon Standard, and Daemon Standard is doing nothing on this. I don't know why. Let's turn spotlight projection off. Okay, that's what was going on. All right. All right, so now I'm just going to get some definition on here of something interesting. So it shows up. I'm going to turn polyframe off. The part inside of it needs to be pushed in as well. Go back to here. And I'm going to solve this out. I'm also going to turn on the poly paint for it. And just add one subdivision level here. And I'm also going to, before I forget, turn dynamic on with the pattern so I can see it. And the thickness is way too much. I'm going to use less thickness. Here we go. That's good. Create a bit of a notch over here like that, and all these will be things that will be visible. Actually, white doesn't look too bad. All right. Yeah, the reference is kind of my work too. So basically what I did is I put in some words into Midjourney and had it generate a bunch of images. And then I took those images and photo bashed them into this. So the reference was an AI thing. And I did spend some time on it, so it's not just like AI out of the box. Speaking of AI, what do you guys think about this new ChatGPT that's going to come out? That's going to be significantly more powerful than what we have so far. Well, not ChatGPT, another. It's something else that's coming out. I'm sure ChatGPT or other things will be based on it. But yeah, what are your thoughts? What are you guys' thoughts on AI and how that's going? Nobody has opinions. I think there's a little bit of a time delay, so I'll wait a few minutes. Yeah, I'm going way over time on this. Soon we'll be out of work. I don't know. I don't know. I think some people will be out of work. But I don't think it's going to be that damaging, actually. I think it might even create more work. Somebody needs to babysit these things and make sure they're doing the right thing. I mean, I see some amazing results. It's still, you know, a human still, I mean, it is for a human. It's not for a machine to consume. So humans still need to touch it somehow. But, you know, I mean, this image was generated by a bunch of AI images, yes, so, but I made it 3D. There's no AI that's doing that yet. Maybe there will be someday. I don't know. But you can see here that I've got something significantly, similar, inspired by this, but definitely a bit different and something that I can rotate around. And this could be a character in a game. It could be a character in a movie. So I don't know. All right. I think that's making the shirt look a lot better. And now let's do some cloth work on it. Maybe some cloth nudge. And for that, I'm just going to go down to the lower subdivision level and turn symmetry off. Excuse me. Just so we get a little bit more of kind of that cloth look. Let's go up in subdivision level. And here I'm just going to assume that this is where it's going to compress. It's kind of bad because I had a really nice shirt before, but I changed the design just a little bit, so I need to do this bit of business once again. Let's get back. All right. Actually, I'm going to, instead of using Damien Standard, I'm going to use this cloth pinch. Which adds these cool little kind of cloth wrinkles. So it's basically using Damien Standard, but it's wrinkling the cloth along the way. It's already generating 3D designs. It's already doing it. There's already programs, but it's really, I mean, you can always say things are going to get faster and better and more this, that, the other, but right now it's kind of got a long way to go to do 3D. But you never know. I mean, it's really interesting technology. If I was just starting now, I would probably be doing, I'd probably be working in an AI company. I still might be. I don't know. Who knows? It's amazing how much that is now the kind of the hot topic. It was before, but then it went away, and now it's back with a vengeance. I'm going to really date myself here and talk about when I was first, working with computers and stuff, like when computers were kind of in their infancy. There was a software package called Racter, R-A-C-T-E-R. You guys could look it up. And it was this software that you can have a conversation with. And it was like the same kind of thing where it was an AI. And I'm talking like this is 5.5-inch floppy disk times, like really early days. And then there was another software called Mind Prober, which I still have a mug from, amazingly enough. But yeah, these software packages were supposed to be doing things like reading your mind and doing all that kind of stuff. And it was just, kind of a bit of a BS kind of a product thing. But some of the stuff that's going on now is pretty amazing, especially talking with people's voices and, like, I don't know if you guys have seen the ones where, like, ex-presidents are playing video games and talking to each other. It's pretty amazing how close they are to real. I'm going to see if I can use a different micropoly for this, if it will make a difference. And also, like, whatever I do, it just seems to be like whenever I look at it from this way, there's nothing happening. I mean, this way it's kind of interesting, but if I look at it from the front, there is not much interest there. So let me do a few things. First is I'm going to use this cloth pinch again. Divide this one more time. There we go. Now we got some interesting type of things happening. So what if I do something like this? I think that created a little bit more interest. And I like what this is doing, but I don't want it to be symmetric. So I'm going to start it over without symmetry. Yeah, I had a Commodore 64 too. Definitely. I had a Commodore 64. I was a Commodore kid. So I had a Commodore 64. I had a Commodore 128. I even had an Amiga. And I started with the VIC-20. And I used to program on Commodore PETs in college. So that's dating me quite a bit. But yeah, Commodore kicked ass. They were cool. As a matter of fact, I started CG well, I started on my Sinclair Spectrum, but I had some programs on the Commodore. There was D-Paint from Electronic Arts. That was pretty cool. I probably still have some images of that somewhere. And there were 3D programs. I started using Lightwave. I think Lightwave debuted on the Commodore. But that was towards the end. There was like this thing called the video toaster for it. Ah, the good old days. All right, well, that's kind of enough of, variation over there. Now let's pick a different color for this. I'm still looking for a good color for this shirt. Go dark blue. No. Lighter. I probably should do some work with coloring program. Here we go. I mean, that kind of is too close to this, but it creates an interesting thing. But it's too much of the same. Gosh darn it. All right, so if I were looking at this, what would be opposite it? If this was a circle, I'm going to go for a crazy yellow. Let's see what that does. No, how about a red? Orange. It's not bad. All right, I'm just going to leave it at this for now. How are we doing on time? All right, I'm just going to go for another maybe 5-10 minutes, and then we'll call it a night. Oh yeah, no, definitely. Tech evolved quite a bit in my lifetime. I'm lucky enough to have been in the, kind of riding the PC wave right from the beginning of it. was lucky enough to work at Microsoft and see how the OS kind of developed into what it is. It would have been cool to be at Apple with the kind of the iPhone wave, but that's fine. I mean, I use an iPhone, I use an iPad, but that's kind of a revolutionary thing too. I mean, I think what Google's doing is revolutionary, but not as much. Social media is kind of in a funky place right now. I didn't ride that wave. I did do a little bit of work with the NFT space. That was interesting. But I wonder what's kind of next for me as far as if I ever do another thing full time. But yeah, it's amazing how far things have gotten just in my lifetime. I don't think there's too many industries in which have progressed so much in such a short period of time. And it's getting faster and faster and faster. Like adoption is getting a lot faster. I don't know if it's the material or what the deal is. What material do I... Okay. What material do I have on this thing? Okay. Fine. Let me choose a different material for it. Let me choose symbol for fabric. Okay. Yeah, that actually made it look a little bit better. So I'm going to choose that material for it. So I'll fill it with that material. I'm going to fill it with the material and the color. And then shift to something else. Simple plastic. Yeah, this material kind of made things a little bit better. And then let's choose a different color though. Okay, I think finally I found a color that I like. It's this boring gray, but it looks better than what I've used so far. Is it worth using Midjourney to create reference? Absolutely. Hell yeah. Why wouldn't you use it? The only, well, actually, there is a lot of controversy on AI right now because they are using artists' work without permission. But once that gets sorted out, it'll be fine. And also, there are technologies being developed where your work cannot be used for reference. So I think ideally what would happen is that tools like this do exist, but somehow they pay the artist that created the original works, or somehow compensate them for what the benefit is on the other end. I don't know, maybe it's wishful thinking that something like that would happen. But yeah, it would be nice that, it's like if there was a way, that, like, if you're using a person's name, or you're using, a person's work, a person's image, that like some sort of a microtransaction happens where that person gets a little bit of money from that. And then for every single person that uses AI and uses that person's image, that artist's image, that artist gets somehow paid. I mean, it would be an impossible thing to monitor and do. I shouldn't say impossible. It would be a difficult thing, but it is possible. I think that's kind of what NFTs were starting to do. So if there's like some sort of a tracking thing for somebody's work, and if AI is using it, maybe even better. Maybe if like after AI generates an image, some other AI program goes in and figures out what was used from what artist, and then generates a a microtransaction and pays that person. That would be really cool. All right, I think I'm getting close to stopping, but I do want to do a few renders just to see what it looks like. So let's let this one rip. Which plastic was I using? This one or this one? I think this one. Here we go. All right, so let's turn perspective on. Let me see what my lighting situation is. Yep, I need to dump this down to 001. Okay, that's good. So I don't have this light doing anything. And then I'm going to load in a HDR. Yeah, I mean, I don't know if anybody has a frame of reference, especially younger people today. If you told them that you had to put in a cassette tape and load in a software like that and wait for it to load and maybe not work the first time, I wonder if they would have the patience for it. Nobody, I mean, I don't know how we did. We had the patience for it. All right, so I'm going to kick off a render here. I'm just going to get an angle like this and see what that looks like. Well, that's an interesting question that you just asked there, Space Cowboy 121. So the artist's images are not stored in the AI, but they are fed to the AI to learn from, right? So if they are learning from it, then they should be somehow, paying that artist. So, it's... if you're using that style, if you're using that artist's work, then that artist needs to get paid. Simple as that. So whether you're using it for training or whatever you're using it for, if something is benefiting from your design, your work, your style, things that you've incorporated and done, then that thing should be somehow... and if that thing is being used to make money, it should compensate you. So let's say, I don't know, let's take an artist. Let's take Van Gogh. If you feed Van Gogh's paintings to AI and then you say, paint a picture of something like Van Gogh, and it does it, and it's perfect, then Van Gogh should be recognized somehow. I mean, Van Gogh's dead, but, somebody who's alive should definitely get some sort of compensation. Or if somebody is dead, then their foundation or whatever should get something for it. And again, that's me doing wishful thinking. Who knows? People have really kind of crappy scruples sometimes. But if you do want to compensate people, then you should. If you don't compensate them, then less people will be artists, and then eventually AI will not have anything to sample from, and that would be sad. All right, so here we go. We're kicking off a render, and I'm liking what I'm getting so far. The paint work that I've done is coming across nicely. Next time I will add a little bit of coloration to the eyes. And hopefully my renders will be a lot faster on the new machine, so we can kind of get different results. All right, so with that, I guess I need to make these things bigger again too, and I'll do that off screen. So if you guys have any last minute questions or anything like that, let me know. Otherwise, I'm going to bid you all good night, and could reconnect with you in a couple of Fridays. So let's see. I'll wait a couple of seconds if there is a delay. And then I will bid you all a good evening or a good day or whatever time of day it is where you're watching it from. All right, going once, going twice, and I think nobody is saying anything. All right, so bye everybody. We'll see you.